Buckle up, boys and girls, because class is starting and it's going to kick your ass. This is the prepared mind.
They want to eliminate what they call the deep state. The deep state is a cadre of professionals dedicated to honoring the Constitution, the laws of this country, and carrying out the policies of the Congress and the President. The deep state dedicated to carrying out the policies of the President. The deep state dedicated to carrying out the policies of the President.
The deep state will let Hawaii burn, California burn, will let Texas freeze, will let New York drown in a cesspool of its own saliva. Folks, these people are messed up, one and all, every last one of them. Welcome to the Prepared Mind channel. It is Hit the Fan, and it is Thursday, SHTF therapy. That's right, therapy. And of course, I'm being absolutely facetious. Well, about us needing therapy, the true part of this whole thing is the Democrats are losing it, and they'll continue to lose it, but they will not give up power. And that's where we have this issue. You know, it's kind of a toss-up thing. They won't give up their power, but they're losing their shit. Now, apparently, the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is causing the Democrats to lose it. They're realizing that there's now someone in there who has a voting record of Make America Great Again style thinking. Well, I want to wait and see if he actually acts like a Make America Great Again speaker. But I want to know this. I seriously want to know what you guys are thinking. If you have a comment or a thought about the new speaker, put it down below. Uman can put them together. I want to know, are you confident? Oh, there we go. There's three answers. Confident, no opinion, or you're like down on this guy. There's some things that are happening, and some things are good, some things are not, some things are just neutral, meaning we're not getting any better. But, you know, therapy. And here's some therapy for me, right? As a kid growing up, I thought, you know, an action hero in the movies was someone that, you know, really understood America. So I looked up to Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was a big athletic guy, right? He was a super action hero. He always kicked the asses of the bad guys and did what was right. You know, except when he played Terminator in the first movie. But, you know, he's a good guy. And the good guy will do anything to do the right thing. Right? That's the James Bond. That's the action hero fellow. Well, I lost a lot of respect for Schwarzenegger when he married into the Kennedys, and then when he ran for governor, he was just kind of a rhino. But it was California. How much can he do? And then he decided to say, "Screw your freedom." You remember that shit? I'm seriously, do you remember him saying that? Screw your freedom.
And not just to think about, well, my freedom is being kind of disturbed here. No, screw your freedom.
Oh, yeah, screw your freedom. Well, he actually came out today and said that he would, quote, make a great president. I guess when he compares himself to a bunch of radical globalist scumbags, I guess he might try and say something like that. But literally, fuck you, Arnold, right? You sold out. You don't understand the Constitution or the law or what it means to be an American. This is really why I think the founding fathers were very wise. They said, look, unless you're born here, no, you don't get to be the president. Well, unless your name is Barack Obama. But enough on that. Therapy, man. I feel like I need to lay on a couch to tell you about this one. Yeah. When your heroes all go away, should that destroy us as Americans? Well, I think that's why someone like Benedict Arnold Arnold Schwarzenegger, Benedict Arnold, right? When you have somebody become a traitor, it's very demoralizing, disheartening. It hurts the country. You don't just rebound from that. You know, when Benedict Arnold was found out to be a traitor, it crushed the Americans quite a bit, because he was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, at that point, hero. And now we've got America. We've got the federal government, Washington, D.C. We've got 50 states, 100 senators, and we don't have more than a handful of people that you could look to and say, these are some great leaders in our country. These are people that love America. Instead, we actually have an entire Congress, an entire bureaucracy, an entire, government at the federal and state level. And basically, they're all saying the same thing. Screw your freedom. What, am I wrong on this? Do you feel the same way? I'm asking about your feelings. Do you feel the same way? Right, that's a feeling. Now, thinking about it, I know who the great heroes are in this country. There just aren't many alive today in positions of power. But I'm curious. I'm curious about your thinking up here. Are you confident that we have great American leaders that have yet to be named, yet to step up, to show themselves as great? That's what I think we're all waiting for and hoping to see. I think that's what everyone wanted to see in Trump. And one second. I think we all wanted that out of Trump. He started fights with the Democrats. He talked about making America great again. He called out Hillary. You know, he did a lot of the right things, but we just never got to that solution, that area where we said, hey, this is where we need to be. This is the country we have, folks. I mean, listen to this bit of information. And yes, it is Thursday. It is Therapy Thursday. Get your questions, comments, thoughts down below, as well as, does America have leadership coming? Is America out of heroes? Well, like I said, and I strongly believe Washington, D.C. is full of losers. Now get this, over in Slovakia, right, Robert Fico is now formally the prime minister. And his first act of business is the immediate cutting. You're done. It ends. Ukraine, you get no more military aid. Instantly. No hesitation. You see, that's what a leader does. They do the right thing. Like a movie hero. They don't care what the consequences are to themselves politically. Just like in a movie, the super awesome heroes, they don't care if they die as long as they save the women and children and penguins and nuns and all the innocent people. Yeah, of course. Well, in real life, folks, Slovakia has a political hero, a leader, Robert Fico. He says Russia and the United States government must agree on terms of peace. Now, what's interesting here is this shows exactly how weak Biden is. He's being schooled by the Slovaks. Right? They know what needs to be done, and they're willing to say it's time to do it. No more military aid to Ukraine. We need peace, not war. Right? Now, wanting peace naively, in my opinion, is no good. If you've got an enemy out there that must be stopped, they need to be stopped. In my opinion, Russia is not the enemy. In my opinion, the enemy is within our own countries. I'll say that again. And I mean this for every country on the planet. The enemies are within our own country, our own political leaders, our own police, our own judges, our own courts, our own governmental systems. That's where our enemies are, because they're not representing the people. It's interesting that in Slovakia, someone like Robert Fico could be elected. And that's what the people want, is to stop this bullshit. And he's actually doing it. And that's how weak Biden is. He's not his own man. He's weak. He's a puppet. He's a toy of other wealthy, rich, powerful people. Isn't that just disgusting? Now, this is interesting. This next bit of information I have for you. Hey, are you prepared? Do you have food, bread, water, meat, beans, cheese? Do you have stuff stored up? Right? Are you prepared for some hard times? A lot of people don't say, hey, we don't need any of that stuff. Everything's just fine. Get ready for more terror action in Israel and around the world. Why do I say that? Well, because this just happened, and it came out today, that the Washington Post, the WAPO, has a supposed Central Intelligence Agency article. And it's throwing out there, it's flying this kite. It's doing a trial balloon. It's saying that the United States government is preparing to step away, to walk away, to abandon, to quit with Ukraine. I said Afghanistan almost, because that's exactly what they did in Afghanistan, because it was a no-win. When I say no-win, it's a no-win for a weak government. Ukraine is weak. The NATO position is weak. The U.S. government is weak, and therefore the war effort is weak. Now, a lot of times a war effort is strong because the enemy is understood as the enemy. In this case, people kept saying, well, Russia's the enemy. Maybe they knew too much. Maybe there's too much real information out here. Too much real information. So they're going to have to step away from Ukraine. Why? There's a couple of reasons why. Ukraine can't win, no matter how much money or military aid or equipment or bombs or missiles we give them. Ukraine cannot defeat Russia. Just can't do it. So why keep fighting it? Number two, it's too expensive, too costly. Not just in terms of money, folks, but domestic politics. The price that Biden and other politicians are paying to support Zelensky is becoming too much to bear. From national treasury to, the fact that no one buys this horse shit anymore. I don't know if they're going to give up and then hope it just goes away and sweep it under the rug, or if they're afraid that the world is going to keep looking and go, you know what? It's just a money laundering scheme. Maybe that's what they're afraid of, is us continuing to pay attention to discover the truth about Zelensky, Ukraine, big businesses, big banks, big bullshit. That could be what's happening. That could be what the problem is. We've got a lot of stuff going on, folks. The people in Washington, all of the deep state, that cadre of so-called patriots, what a crock of shit. Fuck you, Steny Hoyer. What a piece of crap. Right? I think they're afraid, folks. They're running scared, but they have the power, so they're not going to quit. They may need to do some more terror around the world to scare the living shit out of people. Right? Of course, that's a great way to control people, is fear. It's the number one way to control people. Even more powerful than greed. I think that's what they used to suck the Bidens in, was appealing to their greed. And when they got them by those short hairs, give them a tug on their nutsack and go, hey, we got you with greed, but now you're going to do as we say out of fear of getting exposed. Yeah, this is where we're at, folks. Now, how should a government respond to a domestic, problem that it has? Well, get this. And again, this shows you that those with power don't want to give it up. Even though they have a weak position, philosophically, politically, morally, intellectually, etc., they still don't want to give up that power. And they'll do anything to hang on to it. Now, In Florida, folks, they've been trying to keep children safe, keep them away from sexualized freak shows. Well, they're now taking their battle to ban minors from drag shows, that is, adult sexual entertainment. They're taking this battle to the Supreme Court. Now, I want to ask you this question again. I like to look at things cerebrally. Now, from time to time, I'll look at the old, how do you feel? But how about this? How do you think? States have had returned to them by the Supreme Court and the federal government the determination of whether or not abortion is legal. States can determine the legality or illegality of abortion based on what they know to be right. States can determine, right, their rules on guns, who can have them, who can't. They want to determine who can carry concealed, who can't. Right? States can determine that, but states can't determine what is good for children's mental health and what is good for children's personal safety. Isn't that incredible how the state has incredible power, but it takes the federal government to tell us something we already know? Now, I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to take you down a quick little course. The problem with all of this, folks, this Supreme Court stuff and children and drag queens, how is this even a fucking question? When you look at what drag queens are, what they really are, it's a man who puts on grotesque amounts of makeup, dresses in sexually provocative clothing, acts like a woman, talks like a trashy tramp. How is that anything? How is that even remotely good for kids? This is the lunacy of the Democrats. They want children groomed as sex toys. And the state, right, can't make that call. Now, I want to take you back to how powerful is a state in the United States, right? There's 50 states. Let me ask you this question. If there was no federal government, it would be like Europe. Europe has a bunch of little nations. You got France and Spain and Italy and Austria and Germany and Luxembourg and Sweden and Norway and England and Ireland. You've got all these little countries, and they all have they seem to have the ability to make decisions for themselves based on their own belief systems and their own culture and traditions. In the United States, a state is a country. They have their own constitutions. They have their own elected representative government that is a republic. Each state is a republic. Even California, the socialist pile of shit state, the flag says California Republic. Right? The only thing the federal government is supposed to do is allow all the states to cooperate with each other more uniformly and to have a speaker, a voice that talks to other countries for them. Right? So they're all of their efforts are consolidated. You don't have every state making a treaty with other countries. So if a state like Switzerland, known as a state, folks, country or state, they're synonymous terms. Country like Switzerland, a state like Slovakia can make its own determinations, Poland, Romania, Hungary. Why can't a state like Florida decide what is good and what is not good for children's mental health, as well as their safety from sexual predators? And I'm going to say, including their Democrat parents. This is the world we're in now. A lot of people need therapy, folks. What I can say with a great deal of confidence is I don't need a therapy couch. I know exactly what is and is not good for this country. That's a pretty big order, don't you think? That really is that's quite a proclamation on my part, don't you think? To say something that just solid. Get this, folks. In the country of Chile, in the state of Chile, they have a TikTok narco queen. She was executed in broad daylight, execution style. You want to see this in the United States of America? Can you imagine that in our country? Some social media star, some YouTube ding dong gets gunned down in broad daylight. That could never happen in our country. Oops, wait a minute. A little bit too late. I just had to cover that because here we are in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. And a woman who likes to wear hoodies, you know, who else wears hoodies? Oh, yeah, Zark Muckerberg. He likes to wear hoodies. So a hoodie-wearing woman shoots and kills, executes in broad daylight a bus driver while he was driving the bus. Police, people, have you had enough of this shit? Arm yourselves, folks. That's what a free people do. Arm yourselves. What used to happen in these third world shitholes, these weird ass little countries in Africa or South America, it's now happening here. Right? Woman gunned down in the streets of Chile. Bus driver gunned down in the streets of America. It's not the guns, folks. It's not the guns. It isn't. It's the people. It's the people. I mean, get this. Today, Marjorie Greene, right? Representative Marjorie Greene, Marjorie Taylor Greene even, of Congress, she introduced resolution to censure Democrat scumbag Representative Rashida Tlaib because she has anti-Semitic behavior. She apologizes. She's an apologist for the terrorists. And she actually led an insurrection on the Capitol just last week. Well, I tell you what, Marjorie Taylor Greene, not enough. Not enough. You want to censure her, which is basically be giving her a timeout. A timeout. That's not enough, folks. Right? She's worse than anyone can imagine. Get this. She has been shown, it is now demonstrated that she, Rashida Tlaib, has fundraising ties to Hamas insiders. And this has been proven by a watchdog group. Folks, funding terrorism is a federal crime. Funding terrorism is an international crime. I say arrest the bitch. Don't give her a censure. Don't give her a timeout. She needs to be arrested. And while she's arrested, she needs to also be expelled from Congress. Where are the heroes? Where are the strong people? I'm glad that Marge Taylor Greene decided that she needs to be censured. That's just not enough. That's like telling a murderer, right, that they get a timeout or they get a 30-day suspension. No, it's far worse than that, because these terrorists, these Hamas people, take the money that's given to them and they buy weapons and they give weapons to more terrorists, and then they go out and they kill people. That's right. I'm drawing the line. I'm tying it together. Rashida Tlaib's fundraising to Hamas is paying to put bullets in the guns of terrorists who are killing Israelis and who are wanting to kill Americans. Why is she not arrested? It's not just good enough to point this stuff out. Something needs to be done about it. Something does. But what do we have? I said we've got Democrats who want to hold on to their power. They don't want to let it go. No, they don't. They don't want to let it go. What do they want, folks? They want to hold on to their power. This came up. Representative Nancy Mace, who's been trying for the last several weeks to sound and act like an American congressional representative. I've heard people say that she's just another rhino, but she's been trying. She's been trying. I guess she's been to therapy. She wants to be a Make America Great Again, patriotic, constitutional person. Well, I'll tell you what she did. She tells all, folks. She told all. She said that Kevin McCarthy, that's right, Kevin Know Nothing, Do Nothing McCarthy, who was for a very short time the least popularly elected Speaker of the House ever. She said that McCarthy, quote, every time someone ascended, he would knife them in the back. Meaning anytime anyone got power, got around him, he'd screw them over. This is what the bad guys do, folks. This is what the anti-heroes do. This is what the anti-leaders do. They want to maintain that power for themselves, no matter how weak they are, as long as they have enough authority to stab everyone else in the back. I hope Nancy Mace is joined by other Republicans to speak the truth, to give the American people facts. It's just fascinating to me, and I think Uman might agree, that the Republicans, once again, were given the authority by the American people to lead. And instead of leading us to victory and freedom and liberty and the restoration of our republic, they choose to fight amongst themselves and to give up and screw themselves over, or rather screw us over, so they can continue to be beautiful losers. That's what they want to be. So once again, the Republicans are infighting. They won't come together. And there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. Because it's divide and conquer. These are Democrats in Republican clothing, folks. And there's a lot of them. There's more than just 20. There's a lot of them, and they're weak. And so they divide the Republican Party so that it fails every time it takes power. Every single time. That's what's going on in this country, folks. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe this. Just absolutely unbelievable. I'm going to do something here. I'm going to go out on a limb. Chin Music sent me an email. This is a story sent to me by Chin Music, and it's about a woman, a mother, who went to the grocery store. This is where this country is at. While Joe Biden goes on a barbecue, while Joe Biden goes to the beach, while the world is suffering from terrorism, right? While illegals are getting thousands of dollars a month in credit cards and being flown around and given cars and going to the hospital, right? This is what is going on. And Chin Music says, I was in a line behind a woman at the store today who had one large basket of groceries, and it was obvious she was shopping for a family. When it was rung up, the bill was above $400. This is Chin Music writing this, folks. He says, as she took out her card to pay, I observed her hand shaking. When she spoke to the cashier, her voice was cracking from emotion when she told her, we can't do this much longer, and I hope this card goes through. Chin Music said, she turned to me, and I felt terrible. It was clear to me she and her husband, and he noted that she had a ring on her wedding finger. It was clear to me she and her husband are killing themselves to put food on the table, and they can't make ends meet. She was putting her bill on what appeared to be a credit card. This is getting very real, says Chin Music, for a whole lot of people, and broke my heart and really pissed me off all at the same time. We know who's responsible. I'm going to say it's Joe Biden. It is the Democrats. It is the Republicans. All of them in Washington, D.C. doing this. I know who's responsible. At the very top, out in front, Joe Biden and his other cadre of deep state people, whether they're elected like Joe Biden or McCarthy or Pelosi, or whether they're appointed like Merrick Garland or Christopher Wray of the bureaucracies. We know who's responsible. It's all of them for destroying everything. Chin Music says, be prepared to defend yourself, but try to be cool with people also. Man, they are struggling. Chin, I want to thank you for sharing that story. I wanted to read it, and I'm glad that I did. I think it's really important that we understand what's going on in this country. It's not a joke what is happening. They're coming after our Second Amendment. They want our First Amendment. They want to destroy us. They truly do. There's not going to be an easy way out of this. We've got a long fight. We got a long fight. Let's go to the inner circle, folks. Let's talk about what you have on your mind. And thank you, Chin. And we're back. All right, we got Uman of the Blue Wrench in the behind the scenes position. He's got some comments. He's got a couple to start. Let's see what you guys want to talk about. Let's see. We start with Mikey G, and he says 3 aircraft carriers, sitting ducks for hypersonic missiles, maybe. When he says 3 aircraft carriers, he's talking about 3 aircraft carrier groups that are being sent into the Mediterranean, over to the eastern end, close to the Israelis. What's going on in Gaza? You got a lot of ducks in the bathtub, is how I see this. I know that the Mediterranean is a very large body of water, but still, that's a lot of firepower, a lot of military men, a lot of people sitting there. I've heard the number of 12,000, I believe. 12,000 U.S. fighting troops are on these ships, waiting to be deployed onto the land. From my military experience, from my experience as a human being, you don't just send troop ships. You just don't send a carrier group somewhere unless they're well provisioned, stocked up, prepared for being at war. Now, I know that they're always supposed to be ready, that these carrier groups are essentially floating cities. Essentially, they're like, they represent an entire nation's naval force. But in the case of the United States, we have multiple carrier groups capable of patrolling the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, as well as specific areas like, well, the Mediterranean, or the North Sea, or the Persian Gulf. I tell you, 3 aircraft carriers. Are they sitting ducks for hypersonic missiles? You ask maybe. I say yes. They are sitting ducks. It's just the question of, is there a country out there willing to take a shot at America? Another question might be, is America tempting someone else to shoot these American craft, our Navy, and sink them in order to justify bringing the United States of America into a condition of war with one or more enemies in the Gulf? It is very possible. Charles Gentry joins the conversation, and he writes, I hope I am wrong, but what if one of our carriers is the sacrificial lamb? That would get most Americans behind the war. Hard to hold elections at a time like that. Yet one of the fears is that if we go to war, they'll suspend the election. Now, I know this has been a thought and a fear that either Republicans or Democrats have, depending on who is holding the office. Right? In my lifetime, I don't think we've ever suspended a presidential election, no matter how threatening a war situation was. I think that even during the Vietnam War, during the Gulf War, the second Gulf War, during every military exercise, there's never been an actual suspension of a national election. It just hasn't happened. So what would make that different? Well, I'll tell you, sinking a carrier or most of a carrier group, or just attacking a carrier group. That is a serious, and that takes a lot of balls. Now, we do know that Israel, back over 50 years ago, decided to fire on the USS Liberty, not a carrier, but I believe a frigate, military frigate. They attacked them trying to sink it to draw America in. Here's the thing, folks. We don't know. We don't know what is real and what's really happening. It is pretty scary, though. There could be one of these carrier groups there that's going to be sunk. And it'll piss off Americans. But don't you think that we have the right to ask the question, what the hell are they doing there? All three of them sitting there in the Eastern Mediterranean? Why? Because a terror group partially funded by Rashid Tlaib, U.S. Democrat Congresswoman, partially funded by Joe Biden, who gave money to Hamas and who gave money to Hezbollah and the Iranians. You see where the money's coming from? How much would they love, folks? How much would they love to sink one of those carrier groups? How impressed would every terrorist around the world be if they sunk a battleship, if they sunk a destroyer, if they sunk a frigate, if they sunk a submarine, if they sunk a U.S. carrier? That would make America look extremely weak. So it's a great way to sacrifice a part of our Navy to draw the country into a war that Americans would, by necessity, want to support it. Right? He wants a payback. And how would the rest of the world feel about that ship being sunk, ship or ships? They'd be excited as well, and they'd be ready for it. They say, see, America can be defeated. They can sink its Navy right to the bottom of the sea. Very fascinating stuff. Fuzzy Fork, I want to thank you for sending me the great article and video. Appreciate it. I tell you, boy, do I tell you, we got some stuff coming. Thank you, Charles Gentry. I think we'll have our elections, but it would be easier for them to cheat also, and then tell America, tell the world, yeah, everyone wants Biden. They don't. He's not the best president, but we're at war, by golly, and the American people stood behind him. I'm not buying that, not for a fucking second, but you can bet your ass they would play that card. You bet they'd play that fucking card. All right, Mr. Uman. And it is something by Uman. He says, there was a report about an active shooter, meaning someone trying to be a mass murderer. He was at the Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst Air Force Base in New Jersey. And this active shooter event occurred this afternoon. And Uman says, I have not seen any confirmation or updates. As I was driving in to get back to the prepared bunker here, I did catch this news story. I did. I caught the news story. I don't know anything more about it. It's fascinating to me, though, how typically you'll see a mass shooting and then other people, well, they're jealous. They wanted to be in the news. They want that fame. Oh, it's incredible, folks, what people will do for fame. It's also saddening and sickening that these are the people with the same mentality as the people in charge in Washington, D.C. So let's just assume that this guy who is an active shooter on McGuire-Dix Lakehurst, right? Let's assume that he is a murderous idiot. How many other murderous idiots are there out there? And what is his belief system? We keep seeing these mass murderers come out, and they hate America, and they hate Christians, and they hate straight people, and they hate the military, and they hate small hometown people. Well, what am I talking about? The shooting yesterday in Lewiston, Maine. Now, let me give you a little bit more information. I make the claim that these mass shooters are Democrats. Okay, let me tell you about the Lewiston, Maine shooter. Yeah, he had an AR derivative, maybe even a stolen M4 or M16 because he was a reservist. He drives a Subaru. Now, you can be a conservative, a Republican, and drive a Subaru. It just doesn't look really good. But the other strike against this guy, apart from being a mass murderer, killed over 20 people, I think, wounded over 50. He also was wearing Crocs. Folks, Crocs is not approved combat footwear. But it would seem to me they're going to push this gun confiscation. The United States government, the Democrats, Biden, Kamala Harris, Pelosi, the Rhino Republicans, they want gun control. They want it bad. While they give guns to Ukrainian Nazis, while they send money and guns over to Hamas and other terror organizations. Oh, trust me, if they're giving them money, that's buying them guns. That's the same as giving them guns. But they want to take yours away. What does that tell you about the intentions of the Democrats and the rhinos? It tells you they want your guns and they want to use their power to support other terror causes. That's not hero material. That's not leadership material, folks. As far as I see it, it is conspiracy against the American people. Kamala Harris, folks, is over in Australia. In Australia. And she was on the stage praising all of the gun confiscation and gun laws that Australia has passed. She's trashing our Second Amendment, our culture, our rights, our nation, our Constitution, trashing it by praising Australia's destruction of the people's freedom. More is coming. We've got more developing in Israel with Hamas. And that Israel may face Hezbollah and Iran and the wrath of Turkey. The wrath of Turkey. And the United States Navy may face the wrath of Turkey and the wrath of terror forces. It's incredible. And almost at the same time, the United States government wants to push against you, push back against our Second Amendment, against our First Amendment. This is who they are, folks. Right? They're rather hypocritical. And when someone's a hypocrite, it's easy to point it out because you can see it so clearly. So clearly. Right? The government and the people that work for it, they need some therapy. They need to get their head right. They do. But they don't care. They truly don't, folks. They truly don't. They have their own little agendas. Let's do this. Let's step up. Mr. Uman, who wants to be next on the Prepared Mind channel? Wild River Preppers says all clear at Joint Base MDL. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I can't remember what that damn base's name is in Jersey. But the one where they said there's possible active shooter, all clear. I'd like to know how they decide if there's an active shooter. I'm not being facetious. How do they know it's an active shooter? Does it take more than one person to say something for it to be an active shooter? Do we just believe whoever is saying there's an active shooter? It's quite a mess we have on our hands, folks. You know, we have the UFC fighter by the name by the way, his name is Kamazit Chimaev. He says, if Allah allows me to, right, give me a machine gun and send me over to Iran. I'm sorry, Israel. That's who these people are, folks. They want guns for themselves. They want their way, and they want you and I, well, to lay down and die. I know who the active shooters are. It's just some of them aren't as active as others. It's just going to take time. It truly is, folks. These people are becoming absolutely ungovernable if they ever were. And they're being antagonized. They're being encouraged by people like, well, Kamala Harris. She's encouraging terrorism in America by talking down our Second Amendment. What does that make terrorists in America think, folks? They're like, well, if we could get rid of guns here, it'd be all the more easier for us to commit acts of terror and kill people. And the DC government, if they did that, would say, oh my gosh, we still have guns out here. These terrorists are bad. Everyone needs to turn in every gun. There's no exceptions. No handguns, no shotguns, no rifles, nothing. They'll take any negative event and turn it into a political, shall we say, stunt. It's incredible, folks. That's our world. They're multi-personality schizophrenics, it would seem. They can't see their own hypocrisy in government. They can't see and understand that we see and understand what it is they're up to. Do they think they're that sneaky for real? They really think they're fooling us by causing false flags to happen and then offering the solution to the problem they created? They think we're that stupid? Well, I guess they think that. I don't know how right they are because I don't feel very stupid. Right? I don't disillusion myself. I don't pretend that everything's just fine when it's not. But here we are. It is 2023 after all, and we've got essentially 1 year until the president is going to be elected, selected, chosen for next year, for the next 4 years. Got a lot of topics to come up with. Mr. Uman, how are we doing on everything? How are you doing on your end of the stick? No answer. Okay. Oh, I see. He looks busy. Folks, remember that airline pilot the other day? He was off duty, but he decided he was going to take some mushrooms. And then he decided he was going to gain access to the cockpit on the airplane. Okay, very good. I got you, Uman. These are the people who are supposed to be leaders. These are people who are supposed to be responsible. These people have a childlike mentality, but they have power, but they don't want to let it go. But they know enough to keep it by playing these false flag games. We've got some big trouble. I hope you are prepared. Okay, Mr. Uman, let's do a question out of the audience. And it is Chin Music. And he says, banks get bailed out. Ukraine gets weapons and cash. Illegals get handouts. And we get the double-barreled middle finger. That is absolutely correct. That's what we get. And that's if we're lucky. Banks get bailed out. And, well, let's take that one step further, Mr. Chin Music. We've talked about this for years here on the Prepared Mind channel. The way the law has been written now, banks are not supposed to get bailed out. Banks are now supposed to bail in, meaning if the people who have accounts at a bank have deposited, let's just say $10 billion collectively into that bank, if the bank becomes insolvent, if the bank is improperly run, if the bank is going broke, they no longer turn to the federal government and say, please give us money to keep the bank open because we have $10 billion in money in here we have to manage for our clients. Instead, the federal government has looked down at the banks and said, you have lost a bunch of money. You're in the hole, billions of dollars. You have mismanaged your bank. But instead of coming to the federal government to bail you out, you are to bail in. That is to say, you go after your customers' funds. You have 10 billion on deposit, you confiscate that 10 billion and pay your bills. How do banks lose money? I'd like to know. I remember 30 years ago, folks, was it 30? 30 fucking years ago, we were told that by going to ATM machines, banks would save a bunch of money because they would have less tellers with less hours. And most banking is done just to remove a little bit of money. And so they don't need a teller for that. They'll save money. Thousands of bank tellers have been relieved of their jobs. Yet banks are still going broke. How could it be that banks have gone broke, folks, from 2001 all the way to 2022? Before Jerome Powell decided to start raising rates, the rates have gone down, 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 so that banks could borrow money and lend money cheaper, spurring economic activity, spurring sales. Right? Well, banks, what do you mean, John? Banks aren't getting as much money. I don't know about you, but let's see. Banks are getting what? They get to borrow money at 1%, 0.5%, and then lend it back to us at 5, 6, 7, 8%. They're making plenty of money on that. Every time you go out and put more debt on a credit card, guess what a bank is doing? They're creating more money out of thin air. They're like, hey, we need another $5,000 of invisible money to support that credit card. They make money in the fractional reserve system. And with all of this money out there flowing into the Dow, S&P, the NASDAQ, with it just skyrocketing to the moon, banks that take money from their clients and invest it, they have failed. They've lost money. They've gone downhill. How does that make a lick of sense? When the money was cheap and easy to borrow and the stock markets were booming since 2001, and we came out of that little mini recession from the dot-com bubble. 20 years of just economic boom and free money, and these banks are going broke. Imagine as interest rates continue to go higher that these banks, folks, are going to start failing faster and faster. They won't be able to bail them out. They're going to tell them to do the bail-ins. That's the new law. That is the new law. Banks get bailed out. Nope, they're going to start bailing us in as well. And I think it was Treasury Secretary Old Yellen who also promised us years ago that in our lifetimes we'll never see a banking crisis again. What a fucking liar. What a crock of shit. Anyways, she's still there. And here we are. We have banking crisis. We have a currency crisis. We have an economic crisis. They will bail in. And when people get their money stolen from them by their bank, they're going to lose their shit. They truly are. They're going to lose it. All right, Mr. Uman, where do we want to go next? We've got, drum roll, please, Charles Gentry. He says, if you fear the officials, you cannot fight the criminals. If you fear the officials, you cannot fight the criminals. There's a couple of different ways I can read this, Charles. Let's go with this one. If you fear the government officials, you cannot fight the street criminals. Meaning, if we have terror on the streets, Antifa, BLM, Hamas supporting pro-Palestinian murderers, and you take action to protect yourself or others, you could be arrested by the police. Isn't it amazing that the police and then the district attorney's office will arrest and prosecute you for trying to protect yourself and others while they allow these criminals? Remember, the precedent has been set. It was set back in 2020 during the mostly peaceful protesting. And I'm glad that got caught. They just made a meme out of it and showed the world what a bunch of lying, stinking hypocrites they are. I hear you, Charles. Now, if you fear the officials, you cannot fight the criminals. How about criminals inside of government? Bureaucrats, elected officials, right? If you fear officials, you can't go after the officials who are the criminals. You can't fight them. But at some point, don't you think that the people have to stand up? Let's take, for example, that woman, the woman that Chin Music saw, stood behind, knowing her family is running out of credit cards to max out. The family there, right, is at the breaking point. Once you take that same family, that same desperate dad and mom, and put even more stress on them from terrorists in the street, how quickly do you think they'll lose their shit? Do you think a dad who's lost his job and his family is starting to go hungry, do you think he's going to give a fuck about an official, a government person who's trying to stop him, whether they're a bureaucrat, a code enforcement officer, or even a policeman, especially if there are others out there fighting, shooting, looting, murdering, stealing, and raping? It can get ugly very fast. And I think that's what I've been talking about is, again, we could have SHTF acceleration, just right off the charts instantly. I think that's how it is for us. As we go through our lives, we're like, everything's fine. Everything was great until, right, that one thing happened, whatever it was, until I lost my job, right? Until I was served papers that I was being sued, right? Until the bank went under and took my money with them. Crazy world, crazy world. Okay, Mr. Uman, we're coming to the end of the show. We've got just under 3 minutes left, and it is Michael Brown, who always, folks, takes a different angle, at least from my perspective, a different angle, and draws my attention to the subjects. Let's see what Michael has to say today. And thank you, Michael, for the great support through CashApp. I want to thank you, sir, very much. He says, John, people tried to convince you the bully don't exist. That's when I had an oh shit moment. There's so many ways to look at this. People try and convince you, hey, that bully don't exist. Yeah, we got bullies on every level, Michael. You know it. I know it. I mean, we really do. Let's talk about the bullies in our own lives. And once you start backing off, that's when the bully really pushes forward, right? They try and tell you the bully doesn't exist. You know who tells you that? Bullies try and tell you that bullies don't exist in your own family, right? You got a family member gets you in a corner, and they start pushing you around. How about at your job, at your work? Are there bullies at your work? Right? Political bullies that push you around. You bet. And then you've got bullies in government. Government's telling us, hey, man, there's no bullies out here, but it's the government that acts like the bullies, man. Right? They're trying to threaten us, scare us, tell us you can't protect yourself. That's not your job. You don't get to do that. You don't have that authority. You can't do anything, right? And then the real nasty bullies, right? Like Antifa or these Hamas supporters or BLM, these wacky, crazy bastards. They want to pretend like they are superior morally and intellectually. I don't even want to use the word intellectually. I don't even think they go that far. They just want you to think that they are right and you are wrong. And that's how they bully you into believing that you've done something wrong, right? You have done something wrong, and therefore they get to bully you and push back. They get to bully you and start beating your ass. They get to bully you and shoot you. Anytime someone says bullies don't exist, I agree, man. That's when you have an oh shit moment, because you get to see who the bullies are as they tell you. And if they convince you, right, that there are no bullies and you put your guns down, that's when government comes after you. That's when terrorists come after you. That's when left-wing lunatics come after you, is when You let them tell you that they don't exist. And you start accepting their lie as your truth. Man, talk about needing a couch for therapy. Wow, what a fucking week. What a month, what a year, what a decade. And in my world, what a life I've had watching all of this happen with you guys. I mean, come up December 13th of this year, it will be our 10th anniversary. We are in our 10th year, but we will have concluded our 10th anniversary on December 13th. Just a month and a half away. I find that fascinating that I felt that the world is that jacked up, that scary, that 10 years ago, I started coming to YouTube, social media, and sharing my opinion. It has been one hell of a ride, folks. One hell of a ride. Do you think we're going to see the end of this in our lifetimes? I don't know. I think that's the problem there, is it's going to go a lot longer, I think, than people are willing to accept. I mean, I can take what Michael said here and go, the devil, he tries to convince you that he doesn't exist. And that's when the oh shit moment happens too. Holy crap. Being prepared means you're ready. You can deal with those oh shit moments when they come up. I hope you are ready. I hope you have a prepared mind. Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed, Semper Fi.